Are you a researcher looking for the next step in your career? EURAXESS is the European Commission's research portal that you will want to visit. Visit EURAXESS and connect with top-class universities, research organizations, and businesses all around Europe. Thousands of jobs, funding, and hosting opportunities for all research fields and career stages are available at your fingertips. Are you looking to optimize your career? Whether you're an early career researcher or a leader in your field, EURAXESS has something valuable to offer. Check the EURAXESS Career Development section and get yourself prepared for your next career move. Need career guidance? Access the EURAXESS tools and learning resources. Use the self-assessment materials and learn how to better articulate your value to employers. Reflect upon your skills. Explore your values and motivations. Investigate your career options. Get advice on how to plan your career path and reach your goals. Challenge yourself and discover your possibilities in or beyond academia. Get answers to your questions. What competencies are important to employers? In which jobs can I use my skills? Get inspiration from researchers working in different employment sectors. Gain practical information for getting the job. Learn how to write a competency-based CV and improve your interview skills with academic and non-academic employers. Do you want to become an entrepreneur or a team leader in your field? Have a look at the large collection of training resources published on EURAXESS. Are you moving to another country and want to make the best out of your new job? Test your intercultural competence and learn how to integrate and adapt to new cultural environments. Find your nearest EURAXESS Career Development Center and discuss your challenges and plans. No matter your career endeavors, EURAXESS will propose a solution for you, be it mobility or professional advancement and research. Treat your research project and career development with the same priority. Do not waste your time. Visit EURAXESS today, register, and boost your research career tomorrow.
Well, a warm welcome to everyone who is joining us on this beautiful afternoon, morning, wherever you are, to the EURAXESS Career Development Series 2021. We have a lot of interest. We have lots of people that have joined us for the very first session in our Career Development Series today, and we will be starting at the beginning. What we're looking at today is the process of drafting this highly important document that will take you on the path to becoming a successful researcher, and that is the PhD proposal. We have invited two speakers today to allow us to look at the process of proposal drafting from two perspectives. We have with us a very successful professor, someone who is working with early career researchers for many years and has seen many proposals, Professor Holzhacker from Groningen University in the Netherlands, and he will share with us his suggestions as a supervisor on what goes into a strong and convincing PhD proposal. And we have also invited a postdoctoral fellow, Dr. Ernesto Guades, who is a Marie Curie funded postdoctoral fellow at Technical University in Denmark. And he, of course, has been successful in drafting that PhD proposal. So he will share with us some insights from the perspective of a successful PhD applicant. Now with this, I think there's not so much for me to say other than to remind you this is an interactive session. You have the opportunity to ask questions to our panelists via the chat function. If you can see this on your screen, you can type your questions there. We will start off with a presentation by Professor Holzhacker, and then we'll take a break. And in this break, we have the opportunity to read your questions to Professor Holzhacker, and he will then give his best advice to you. And we will then continue with Ernesto's presentation. And once again, just please do make sure you type your questions in the chat function. Now, without further ado, I think I would like to invite Professor Holzhacker to start his presentation. Just give me a very short I'm sorry, I need to unmute you. There you are. You should be unmuted. Can you? No, you are not. Could someone please help me? I think Professor Holzhacker is muted. Could someone just quickly help there? Can you switch on your microphone, Professor Holzhacker? Yes, there you are. So the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Suzanne. Good morning to everyone across Europe, and good afternoon to all of you across Southeast Asia and ASEAN. It's really good to be with you this morning, this afternoon, and I look forward to also, addressing some of your questions. I think the first thing you have to do when you begin to think about entering this trajectory of doing PhD research is really to look inside yourself and say, what is a set of issues that are really going to excite you to do empirical research for about 4 years, depending on the program. And I think it's important to first sort of look back and say, well, what kinds of, in your bachelor program, in your master thesis that you wrote, what kinds of theories, methodologies especially interested you and that you really want to go into more depth on? Then I think it's important to also look to the future and say, well, what do you want to do with your PhD? What kind of position at a university or other professional organization? So it's important when you're designing your PhD to think about the mix of theories and methodologies that you're going to use. Okay, if we could go on to the next slide, please. So I'm the director of our ASEAN Center. We're trying to bridge across Southeast Asia and also between Europe and Southeast Asia, and this is the longest bridge in Southeast Asia in Malaysia, and it's sort of the symbol of the work that we do. Okay, next slide, please. As you're looking for a PhD program and somebody to supervise your PhD, I think it's important in your communication and in your PhD proposal, you build on your prior experiences, your academic studies, your employment, your internships, your involvement in NGOs, civil society groups, life experiences. You bring all those things to the academic enterprise. I think it's also important to look beyond just a topic, but try to think about the wider disciplinary or perhaps transdisciplinary field and the current theoretical debates in that field. Your research PhD is designed to set you up for about 5 years, also after the PhD, for a set of research topics. So you're really trying to plan ahead for about a decade. So it can't just be a narrow topic, but you have to embed it in a current debate within a discipline. What's also very important in a PhD is to think about what's new and innovative about the proposed research, both from a scientific standpoint, but also for a societal perspective. There's much more focus now on being very specific about the societal impact of our research. Once you sort of have looked at your own topic and disciplinary debate, then it's time to begin to investigate which European universities, which centers, which professors are currently researching and publishing in your field, and begin to identify scholarship and funding opportunities. Sometimes these are within the host nation where the university is located, and other times there are national funds from your own country. Okay, next slide, please. When you first reach out to a professor, I think it's important to try to have versions of your dissertation proposal in different lengths. When the professor first opens that email, it's important that there's a kind of paragraph or abstract of the proposal, even before they link to the proposal below. That way the professor will also know if perhaps this might be better for a colleague of theirs to read. So it helps make sure that your file doesn't get lost in this process. Also, when you're designing your proposal, think about the priorities and goals of the scholarship sponsor and show yourself to take these seriously by addressing them in your proposal. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, this is, I think, the most important slide that you'll see today. You might even want to take a picture of this with your phone. First of all, every university, they may have slight different variations, or they may even have a form, but this would be a sort of typical structure of a research proposal, which is also based on how journal articles are typically organized. So in your research proposal, let's say it's about 5 pages, something like that. I think it's good to start with a 2-paragraph introduction, one that focuses on your particular comparative case study or longitudinal design in a particular country or region. But the other paragraph already needs to be more theoretical and presenting your research as part of a larger academic debate. And then very quickly, so after these 2 paragraphs, your research question. And I think it's really important that this end in a question mark and really be a question that you're posing. After that, it's good to say in 2 paragraphs, what is the scientific and social significance of your research question? Why is this question important? This is very important for funding agencies, and it's also important for the professor and university that you want to study. Why is this an important question? Why is your research going to be new and innovative? Next, I think you should have a 1 or 2 paragraph methodology section, going into a little more detail about what kind of documents you're going to look at. Are you going to use statistical analysis? Are you going to be doing content analysis? What kind of interviews might you do? This way, right away, very quickly in this research proposal, you've told us what your research question is, why it's important, and how you are going to study this. Then you take a step back and you give us a theoretical overview and literature review, maybe about 2 or 3 pages. So it's really important to use Google Scholar to do some research. It's good to look back on your master study. What kinds of theories did you tackle at that point? And this places your proposal within the existing literature. Next is the analysis section, where you really in more detail show how you're going to undergo your research. Make sure that this is related to the theoretical perspective that you offered. perhaps the theory that you're discussing and the literature review lets you focus in on 3 or 4 key variables that you're going to look at in your analysis. And then finally, in your conclusion, you're linking the theory section and the analysis. So I think this is a typical structure of a research proposal that then you can adapt and modify depending on what university and what professor, what kind of department that you're applying for. Okay, Suzanne, next slide, please. I think it's very important that you're in your proposal that you link your research to current major scientific, policy, or societal agendas. This obviously relates to this demand that it's new and innovative and it's going to make a difference. So you might, for example, link your topic to one or a group of the Sustainable Development Goals. The SDGs have received a lot of attention. Many countries have targets for their global goals 2030, and perhaps you can make a difference in how countries try to meet their SDGs. You might think about regional integration issues, for example, within ASEAN. So within the multi-level governance structure, what role does ASEAN play to help member states share information, share best practices? There is a lot of discussion right now about climate change, both mitigation to reduce greenhouse gases, but also adaptation. So perhaps your topic might relate in some way to climate change. There's ongoing discussion about sustainable and resilient development. And I also think for a PhD, you should also consider comparative research and also implementation challenges. So we go beyond just the documentary evidence, but really look at the difficulty in cities, villages, trying to implement some of these changes. Okay, next slide, please. If we could go back to the Sustainable Development Goals, yeah. So here are the 17 goals that the UN and the world community agreed upon. You see a set of social goals, especially in that first line: no poverty, zero hunger, good health, quality education, gender equality. You also see a set of kind of economic ones. SDG 8, decent work and economic growth. 10, reduced inequalities. 11 is one that I work on from my position in a planning department, so sustainable cities and communities. And then in the bottom row, you also see a series of environmental SDGs around water and land, but also SDG 13 on climate action. I think this is important because now the Paris Climate Change Accords, so the idea of climate is embedded in this broader sustainable development structure. Okay, next slide, please. You know, I really like this picture from Indonesia, and for me, it says, hey, when you're thinking about your PhD, think about the impact on the most vulnerable and future generations. I think this picture is kind of fun. These school children playing but they're also very much connected to the world. You see the satellite dish in the background. So they are also aware of things happening around the whole world, which are now increasingly impacting them as well. So when you think about the social significance of your research, I think showing pictures like this, thinking about the lives of a diverse group of people is really helpful to show the importance of our work. Okay, next slide, please. This is a book that I edited with a colleague from mine at Gadjah Mada University in Indonesia, Dafri Agusalam. And we had authors, professors from each country within ASEAN looking at SDGs in Southeast Asia. And the next slide, please. And this is the latest book that my ASEAN Center has written for Springer in New York with my co-editor, Wendy Tan. And this featured then chapters from many of our PhD candidates. Okay, next slide, please. I wanted just to mention some of the work that I'm currently working on. So we're looking at sustainable cities and this impact of these various agendas, climate impacting cities, environmental change, flooding, drought, and economic development. And here you sort of, on the lower part, you see these sort of societal aspirations, which are in the SDGs, poverty reduction, food security, water and sanitation, and those above the line, then these areas of scientific inquiry. So what I'm recommending is linking your research between the societal aspirations and scientific inquiry, especially for the social sciences. Okay, next slide, please. Yeah, I just wanted to show you a bit of, this is our academy building in Groningen. This is in the northern part of the Netherlands. You see that everybody bikes a lot. So this is our main academic building. And then the next slide, if I could show you, this is a city picture, and you see all the bicycles in our city center. And the next slide, please. Yeah, and it's afternoon in Southeast Asia, so I share a kind of evening a picture with one of our very picturesque canals in the center of the historic city. Okay, thank you. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you very much, Professor Holzhacker. Now we, of course, have questions coming in from our audience members. I mean, if I just briefly summarize, of course, it's very important to build on your previous expertise, to showcase that you already know what's happening in the field that you want to be an expert in, and to kind of find your niche so that you can make an original contribution to the research field. You've just paid a lot of attention, so you need to find your topic and also connect it to kind of big themes that are going on. Now, we can't all be researching the same. How do you make sure that you stay original? Where do you think should people take should they start off from when they look for their ideal PhD topic?
You know, when we look at proposals, we really, and when we talk to the PhD candidate, you know, we really want to hear about what's their internal motivation, why this topic really moves them and excites them, and that will be sustained over 4 years. You know, it's a long process, a lot of research and writing. So really looking inside and then showing in the things that they've already done, in themes that they might have in a particular course that they took at the bachelor or master level, or what themes that came out of their master thesis. and then, you know, take that the next step. But linking then that sort of topic to, okay, how does this fit into a, you know, academic debate, and how can they take this the next stage?
How important is it already during the proposal to have a very exact timeline of what you're going to do in this month and this month? How important is it to kind of, how detailed does the applicant have to be in drafting the proposal?
So at least in the Netherlands, then during the first 9 months, that's the time when one is developing the research proposal further. So then it becomes a sort of 30, 40-page document that also lays out sort of 4 key articles that will emerge from the dissertation during the process. And we also, in that first year, want the student to already be working on a first article that at least takes some of their empirical research or a pilot study in. So this proposal stage, when one is applying, is really just to open the doors to what that further complete research proposal is going to be completed over the 9 months. So the timing issue is not something that I think is normally asked about too much. Of course, one needs to be aware that of the typical rhythm of a PhD. The first year is doing a lot of reading, and you're normally at your home university, and then sometime in the second or third year will be time to go into the field, do field research, and then typically your fourth year is primarily back at your university and, you know, doing more writing. So yeah.
Thank you. I think this is probably important to emphasize that, because people, I think, sometimes confuse the PhD proposal with the actual PhD. And that's, as you said, that's not it. The PhD proposal is to show your interest and the passion that you have, and of course, a little bit of background knowledge. And then you'll spend the first part of your first year in developing the proposal. Now, you are working in the Netherlands at an institute which I assume has a lot of international students, where English may not be the first language. How important is language? This is a question we always receive. People that are not mother tongue speakers of English, they're concerned that if they make mistakes, that would be a huge detriment to them. Is that a problem?
You know, the PhD is there is a lot of writing, and we have found it very helpful if the candidate has already written a master thesis in English, so that they've already demonstrated either in some publishing of articles or a master thesis in English, sorry. And that's very helpful to show. But what I am always speaking to my colleagues about is that when the student is embedded in an English environment, and our university in the Netherlands is almost all 95% of classes are in English. So it's a very international community, it's English based, and I say, you know, there's so much improvement over the first 6 months, a year in our university in the ability to write in English and speak English. So what I'm looking for in the application stage is, can the student understand my questions and respond to my questions about their research? So then I know that during the supervisory process that they are going to understand that and be able to respond to suggestions and advice, and then over time they become increasingly independent. We do require the English test scores, either 6.5 or 7. So English is important, but you know, some growth is expected, and we add in extra writing academic English courses taught by writing specialists as well.
Thank you so much. So we have quite a few questions, and I want to ask at least some of them. So we have someone, Chuang Hock Ting, he's asking, I guess he's referring to the literature review, how many articles need to be quoted in a typical proposal? So what would be your advice there?
You know, I guess first of all, I think in a 5-page proposal, there shouldn't be too much quotation, direct quotation from articles. It's more showing that you understand the academic debate that's going on. So I think it's important. One of the things that Google Scholar, you know, does is when you do your searches, it shows articles that have been cited the most by other people. So those typically then are more important articles. They often have a more theoretical basis to them. So it's important to have some of the major literature, but then also some of the literature that may also be in local languages that have already looked at the issue in your own country or the country that you want to study. So you know, if there is a 3/4 of a page bibliography at this point, that might be sufficient. Yeah.
Thank you so much. We have a question from Haris Enga Vijaya, and he or she, I'm sorry, would like to know how important is it to base your research proposal on the research that you've already done? I guess what this person means, do you always have to build on your master's thesis, or can you go into something new, and how far can you steer away from your research background?
I think it's good to be able to show some link, you know, so even if you can say, well, this was a particular methodology that I have learned from and want to apply again. Maybe it's, well, I learned how to conduct research interviews and that's a skill I'm going to bring. So it's just when we're looking at a CV and interviewing, we want to see, is the student prepared? Can they accomplish what they're proposing? And the further that moves away from a link to the things that they've already done, then it becomes more difficult to see that. So it doesn't mean the topic has to stay the same, but some kind of, you know, theoretical continuity or writing ability or a methodology, something that shows you're prepared.
Thank you. This question actually came up in various forms here. There's another important question, I think. What if someone comes, he or she has taken a break, they're coming from a different area now, they've worked in between. So they've done their masters and then they went to industry and then they have a different background. Is there something different that you look for in a candidate with this research or with this background?
Yes, thank you for that question. You know, I think that the best PhD candidates are those that have had some experience. So didn't just go right through bachelor, master, PhD. We're often looking for people that are, you know, either existing lecturers at the university or have had significant experience with a NGO or civil society or a business or government position. And I really want to hear then how that experience, that engagement, that insight from being in the real world is going to bring the real world into their research. I think it makes for very effective research that has a much likelier to have an impact on society. So not just thinking it's going to improve the academic debate, but it's really is important for their society.
Thank you. Another question, which I think is very important. The key obstacle, I think, for researchers specifically in Southeast Asia that may want to go to Europe, to the Netherlands to do their PhD, they need to get in touch with a supervisor. And we have someone who's asking, how do you make sure the supervisor opens your email or the potential supervisor replies to your proposal? I mean, you have, I'm sure, been in this position. What catches your eye? What makes you respond to someone who is asking for you to be their supervisor?
You know, I think it's very important to, you know, really look at a potential supervisor. So look at what they have recently published and match that. So that's a much better strategy than just sending it to a whole bunch of people. The other thing is that a lot of professors might not realize that there are various funding mechanisms also from your own country. So you should tell them that if, for example, from Indonesia, that if you say that if you get accepted, that you would be able to apply for the LPDP scholarship program, that then lets the professor know, even if there's not internal money at the university or their country, there may be external sources that the PhD candidate knows about.
Okay, thank you so much. A quite straightforward question. Is there an age limit for PhD students in the Netherlands?
There is not, and you know, I work closely with the EU on anti-discrimination, and that would be also considered age discrimination. So such a blanket thing like that is not allowed.
Okay, that's great news, of course. I know that you have a teaching to do as well, so just maybe a couple more questions. A question that comes up a lot here is, do you need to have a publication already before you even start your PhD?
You know, not all of them do, but many have at least a publication within, you know, the institution that they've been, you know, working in. So it might not be quite an academic publication, but it shows that they have been involved and interested in publishing. So, yeah.
Thank you. I mean, maybe the message is, as you said at the very beginning of your presentation, you need to show that you're passionate about this because it's a long process. And if you've already published something, even if it's just within your own department, it shows that you are committed to that type of career trajectory. I think, you know,
there was one more comment I wanted to make, and it was about an age issue with PhDs. And one of the things that I wanted to say is that, you know, so far we have had 22 PhD candidates in our ASEAN Center, and we have equal men and women who have that are here. And part of that is because we make sure that families stay together, their children are in the schools in the Netherlands, and we do that by giving a top up above the scholarship that they get from their own country. And we think it's very important for good research also that families stay together and not that, you know, they're spending 4 years away from their family. And that's been especially important for recruiting women, and that their children will join them and their spouse. So yeah, I think it's when we're making sure that both men and women are making a difference across Southeast Asia is very important.
Thank you so much. If you allow me, maybe 2 more questions, because we have just an interesting one. When reaching out to the potential supervisor, Should the person already attach the proposal or wait until they send the second email? What would you suggest?
I think in the first email, it's good to attach the CV and yeah, and some kind of proposal. Yeah. But,
thank you.
But in the actual email, also saying, you know, a paragraph, like an abstract of the proposed research. Yeah. But
Thank
so you
you.
don't need to, you don't already have to attach like all your diplomas and things like that, but just, you know, 2 of the critical things, and later on in the broader application process is normally through the graduate schools, not directly to the professor. But what the professor is really looking for is CV and the proposal. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much. And before we let you go, maybe if we look back at your career and you've handled and seen lots of PhD proposals, maybe if you could just give us the top 2 not to do things. Which, when you receive these proposals, what stands out where you think, no, this is not a candidate, so that our audience can avoid these common mistakes, the most common mistakes?
Well, you know, of course, sometimes I get proposals that are from a whole different region, and I feel like, well, if they would have just looked briefly at my website, then I'm a director of our Southeast Asia program, then, you know, it's a little bit of a stretch to, you know, ask me to do something so totally different. So I guess, you know, it's, you know, making sure that basic, you know, grammatical mistakes, that, you know, using Grammarly.com is like a grammar program, and the spell checking things. So any like sloppiness just says, oh, was done very fast, and a PhD has to have very careful research and data has to be done. It's a very exacting science. So any kind of haste in the process doesn't really look very good. So.
Thank you so much. I think that sums it up extremely well. So we thank you very much for your contribution. There have been questions. I know some of you have asked questions and we haven't answered them, but we will respond to you later on via email. And Professor Holzhacker, if you don't mind, maybe we can share, of course, your contact details. And if someone now has an idea of a PhD proposal in your field, maybe they can contact you as well. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
And with this, I would like to invite our next speaker. And our next speaker is Ernesto Guades. Now, Ernesto is not a social scientist. He is an engineer. And I'd like to invite Ernesto now to join us, to switch on his camera so we can see him all the way from Denmark. There he is. Thank you so much, Ernesto. Now, I will just give the floor to you in a second so you can introduce yourself as well and your background. And of course, Ernesto already has a PhD. So a lot of what we've heard from Professor Holzhacker, he has done successfully. And I will now hand over the floor to him to share with us his advice to you as potential PhD candidates on what you should look out for when you are drafting your PhD proposal. Thank you so much, Ernesto. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Suzanne. Can you see now my screen?
Yes, perfect.
Thank you. Thank you. First, I would like to thank the Marie Curie ASEAN group for this chance of providing me so that I can share with you the journey of my PhD. And I completed my postdoc here at the Technical University of Denmark, but I completed my PhD at University of Southern Queensland in Australia. So we already heard some details of coming from the presentation of Professor Ron regarding information on how to make a proposal for us to be funded, and that's what But in my case, I will be presenting to you a practical experience that I have, starting from sourcing of funds to fund my PhD up to the successful uh, presentation of my proposal and also receiving a certificate of PhD candidature. So I will be extending more of my presentations not only on proposing for funding, but rather on how I do a more successful PhD proposal. Now, I would say that my journey in getting my PhD can be described in three stages. The first stage is admission at the university and also getting scholarship. Then after getting the scholarship, you have the second stage, which is the PhD proposal defense, which is for you to be totally become a PhD candidate. And the third stage is the submission of the PhD thesis. And for these three stages, I develop proposals starting at the admission and getting scholarship. And also, I'm also did a proposal for my PhD candidature as a requirement. And I will be sharing to you stage 1 and stage 2 on how I successfully get funding for my proposal for project as a PhD for admission. And also I will be also showing you the things that I have done to to obtain the certificate of a PhD candidature. Now, one of the challenges that I look into is that looking for potential host supervisor, and also looking for universities that match also my qualification, my interest, my research interest. And I did this preliminary works for 6 months. Now I also asked my colleagues, from my previous studies in my engineering. I also asked them, uh, potential host supervisors, and also ask also my colleagues who are doing their PhD. And as I believe that if you have some friends or colleagues who are working in the university, they can also help you in introducing to a certain host supervisor. Now, these two requirements are very important, because in most cases, universities, such as the university that applied, they required a preliminary research proposal. And also, they also need that the supervisor should also be included in drafting the research proposal. And also, they want to ensure that the project that you will be dealing in the university will be successfully carried out. And so these two elements, the research proposal, although it is preliminary, and the support from supervisor is my key in submitting the documents, including these two, for me to be admitted at the university and eventually will have the scholarship for my PhD. And the first thing that I did is to look for host supervisor. And then I sent an email, and luckily, one of the host supervisors responded positively. And you will see here that we have exchanges of emails. The initial email that I have is that I showed my interest. I also give the CV and tell him that I am interested in working under your supervision, and also giving him some informations on the proposal that I will be working. And so we have, I think, around 5 times exchanges of emails, and before finally coming up with a plan on how to submit a research proposal, which is part of the requirement for the admission and also for a scholarship grant. And what is more important here is that the enthusiasm of the supervisor in helping you. And if you think that you feel that they are interested with your research, then you should also have an interest to work jointly with the supervisor, with the host supervisor. And finally, we agreed to have a research proposal, and we discussed on the description of the project that I will be dealing with, and also the aims or the objectives, and the significance and the methodology or the methods that we're going to use, and the timelines, and also where we're going to get the funds, and of course the signature of the supervisor, which is also part of the requirement. And so after discussing this for around 1 month, exchanges of emails, and we have now the application package. We submitted it to the university, including the reference letters and also a preliminary research proposal. And I prepared a 4-page preliminary proposal indicating the descriptions of the topics that I'm going to do, and then the methods, and then how it will also increase the knowledge of my field, and also the timelines of that. And after 2 months, I received an email from the university, and then it's a good news also. And so that means that I will be continuing my PhD. And then for that application, I was given a 3-year scholarship grant. And that is the process of securing or even admission at the university. Now, after I secured the scholarship, I started now working on my proposal. And I used my 4-page preliminary proposal as my working proposal. Although this is only a 4-page summary of my work, of the things that I will be doing at the university, this also is a key for me in finally making a 44-page PhD research proposal for candidature. Now, upon arriving at the university, the first thing that I did is familiarize the university, familiarize the environment, familiarize the people, and also familiarizing the university research policy, including how to conduct responsible research, the policies and procedure, about intellectual property policy and procedure of the university, and I even explore some of the policies of the government. That includes the higher education research data collection. That means that all of the things that I will be doing with my research should always be directed towards the policy of the university and the government. And one thing that I really focus here is that how can my project becomes really a research that is in line with the policy of the university of the government. And so I focus more on the inclusion of the research and even the definition. And the university has actually the definition of research. And that definition includes that my project should increase the stock of knowledge. That's the first thing. And the other one is it should be original. And the other one is it should provide significance, or there is a need in doing that. Now, even if your research project is original, but there is no need to do that, then it's not sufficient to say that it is a research. And these technical elements, it should increase the stock of knowledge, it should have significance, and it should be original, are the basic elements that is usually seen as when the panel of reviewers will review the proposal. And not only these elements are used in reviewing the proposal, this is also the elements that are being looked when you are submitting your manuscript in journals, in technical papers, and even in your dissertation. So with this, I focus more on these elements when I develop my 4-page preliminary research proposal. And now, the only way that you can say that these elements are satisfied when you compare that to the literatures. And so, in my first 6 months of my study, I dedicated myself in reading, synthesizing, analyzing literatures. That is for the first 6 months. And I tried my best to collate, analyze around 2 to 6 manuscripts per day. So before the submission of my research proposals, I already have around 300 literatures coming from journals, coming from technical papers in conferences, coming from books, and also coming from other sources of this. And I considered analyzing of literatures and reviewing them as one of the major activity in my PhD before submitting them and before as a preparation for my proposal writing. So I made a device. It is a matrix where I tabulated all of the informations regarding the one that I've read, and also uh, this 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 schemes also provided me really a big help for me to compare and contrast. For example, I put all of the informations here, the title and the source, and what they are studying, that is the objectives, and also the methods they use, and the key results. Now, by doing this, it becomes easier for me to compare and contrast. For example, in the key results, I will be able what is the problem of doing this, and also I finally found the research gap that I need to address. And also in the methods, I also make this. Uh, this also helped me a lot when it comes to the methods that I'm going to use, and also compare and contrasting. So I did around 200 of of the uh, of the literatures and put this in this matrix. Now sometimes uh, you can always read the literature, sometimes around 10 pages or 20 pages or 15 pages. But for me, this is a good way because it actually eliminates time wastage because you already have the key results instead of reading a 10 or 15 pages. And also sometimes if I read, I sometimes also forgot some of the informations there. So by doing this, it actually easy for me to go back to the paper, and also easy for me to get the key points of that journal or manuscript. And during the 6 months and even 9 months of my study, I did not right away write. I did not right away focus on my proposal. I focus more on writing manuscript, particularly on literatures that I've read. Because if you already have, if you already have the manuscript, for example, a review about your topics, this become part of the components of my PhD proposal. Now, some of the part here becomes my chapter 1, which is the introduction, and other part also of this one becomes also the part of my chapter 2, which is literature review. Now, not only that this helped me in publication, but also at the same time also I am writing my proposal indirectly. And one important thing that I emphasize here is that in order to strengthen your proposal, that there should be something that that I would say support that this kind of research is really needed. And I submitted this for publication, because if you have prior publication before the review, it really helps you a lot, and it really helped me a lot in convincing the panel to accept the things or the theory that I have presented to them. And that's the thing that I first did in my first 9 months. Now, aside from concentrating on writing manuscript, aside on concentrating on reviewing literatures, I also have some off-table complementary activities. That means that around 50% of my work is on reviewing literatures, but a portion of 50% of that also is dedicated to do off-table activities. And I have lots of off-table activities. You have the first one is I familiarize laboratory equipment, facilities, and their operation. I also did the safety induction, and that helped me a lot when it comes to deciding what methods I'm going to use. The other activity that I did is I also witnessed some of the ongoing experiment testing, whether from the student or from the industry. It also provide me an information on the things that I should not do when it comes to testing, or even the things that I need to prepare prior to the testing. I also attended special course on PhD proposal writing. Of course, technically this enhanced my capacity in writing a proposal, and also this also guided me in understanding the format that I'm going to use. That is tailored to the university proposals requirement. I also attended PhD proposal presentation, and in that case, I learned the do's and don'ts of presentation, and also I also tried to ask some questions, and those inputs that I got from the presenter serves as my guide, also as inputs in writing my proposal for PhD. And during that term, I also perform initial experiments, tests, and also doing some visit, and also trying to figure out before finally having a full-scale testing. And I did not do any large-scale testing before the proposal was approved by the panel or by the university. And this is also a must. I attended consultation meetings with the supervisory team. I make sure that they are all informed, and all are dealt accordingly. I also frequently talk with postgraduate students, especially senior students, asking them the things that they have done during the proposal, and also I ask some of the proposal samples that they have, and as well as connecting with some of the research members of the center, and also the faculty of the engineering which I belonged. I also participated in industry visits. I also witnessed some of the product field testing, and this one is, for me, is really helped me a lot when it comes to sourcing out of materials in my experiments and in my study. And I even contacted some researchers, requesting them to give informations, no? And also the things that they have done, the previous studies, the dissertation, the thesis that they have, the manuscript, the journals, the technical papers that they have, which are not available. And I received some of them, provided me a good, positive reply. But some of them also ignored my emails. And there's even one instance in which one researcher emailed me that my email annoyed him. So I mean to say, this might also happen to you if you do this. But at the end of the day, it's a matter of asking informations that will really help a lot when it comes to enhancing my proposal or your proposal later on. And because I did some of the preliminary testing that I have, so I started really writing of the results and then submitting them as technical papers. And in my initial months of my PhD, I first submitted it to conferences or in symposia, where I get some of the feedbacks, and these feedbacks are really important, and I consider them as input in finally writing my proposal. And those are the complementary activities that I've done, aside from reading and also analyzing literature's review. But mind you, literature review, reading, and understanding provided me significant inputs when it comes to writing of proposals. So whether some of these, whether you will not go into these complementary activities, as long as you develop matrices, as long as you have an extensive and comprehensive literature review, you can still submit a proposal, a good proposal. And so at the 9th month of my study, I already have a comprehensive review of literatures. I already have the data and everything at the 9 months. I also have initial data and data from my initial experiments. I already submitted a manuscript on review paper for publications. I also have technical papers submitted to conferences and also some feedbacks. And these elements help me a lot when it comes to writing of PhD proposal. Now, in writing PhD proposal, I I actually made it easier for me now to write because the manuscript that I've written for review paper, actually two of the components there, the chapter 1, which is the background of the study, and chapter 2, the literature review, is already there. So I only have to modify them, provide some additional informations, and then you already have the chapter 1 and chapter 2. And then my chapter 3, which is methodology, is taken from, is referenced from my chapter 1 and chapter 2, which is the objectives, and the timelines also are also part of the methods that I have. That means that because I did a review on manuscript and also submitting it to for publication, I already did around 60% of writing my PhD proposal. And after submitting my PhD proposal to the supervisory team and getting some feedback and finalizing them, and on the 10th month of my study, I was able to submit my PhD proposal to the Faculty of Engineering. And so my PhD proposal defense was scheduled 2 months after. And here is the content of my PhD proposal. Totally, I have 44 pages. And for my introduction, chapter 1, these are founded on the comprehensive review of literatures and also on manuscript that I've developed, that I've considered for publications, and also technical papers that really provided a strong support why I am doing this study. And with this answers on the technical elements that is needed for this to be considered as a research project. And if you have a strong chapter 1, you will also have a strong PhD proposal, because here you will see that it increases the stack of knowledge. It also is original, and also it has significance or a need to study this one. So this is really, really important when it comes to the review of your PhD proposal. And now for my chapter 2, the review of literature, this is also well-founded on the reviews of literatures that I have done. And also, this is also founded on the matrix that I did. And for my review of literature, in my proposal, I included around 40 references for my review of literatures. And for my chapter 3, this was also well-founded on comprehensive review of literatures about the methods that they use and the methods that should I adapt also and ensure that it can be done. And because I also familiarized laboratory of the university, I also have the support that it can be done in the university, in the level of the university. And also witnessing of experimental testing and the initial test that I've done also. And participate industry really helped me a lot in convincing the panel that this can be done at the university. And one important contribution of the industry here is that because of my collaboration with them, due to participation in industry visits and even witnessing field testing of their products, they were able to provide me the specimen that I use. And that supports the proposal that uh, uh, it really can be done in the university. And
Ernesto, sorry, you've given
yes,
us already so much information. Maybe you want to quickly wrap up, and then we can go to the
yeah,
Q&A. There's lots of
yeah,
questions from people that want
yes,
to pick your brain.
yeah. I also sure. I also showed the progress of my research to date, and also, well, finally I received the comment, and I consider this as minor issue. and also a minor revision, and they said that well, the project that I've got is actually considered as a PhD, the proposed, and I addressed them one by one, and finally I received a certificate that I finally am a PhD candidate and coffee now. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Ernesto. That was incredibly detailed, and you've given us a fantastic timeline. And I think this is going to be very useful to our attendees today to see what the process is in drafting the proposal and also carrying out the PhD. And you've put a lot of emphasis on the literature review. People were asking, and I mean, maybe we can answer this question together. People are asking how important the literature review actually is. Why is the literature review so important, not only to the PhD proposal, but to the PhD itself? Ernesto, what, in your experience, why did you spend so much time on it?
Because your project, your proposal should be the elements. There's the element should be present there. For example, your research should have novelty. Your research should increase the stack of knowledge. Your research should have significance, and your research should have. There is a need to do your research, and all of those you can only answer of those if you know the status of the knowledge in your field. And that's why you really have to explore lots of literatures in order to tell them that your project is new, that your project will increase the stack of knowledge of the existing knowledge, and that there is really a need, because you cannot propose a project which already have been done. You cannot propose a project if there's already somebody who did that one, and if you found that there's already somebody who did that one, then there's no novelty. All you have to do simply is to adapt that one. And that's why you really have to give, I really dedicated myself in reading so that these three elements of research is present in my proposal.
That is a very good point, because that is exactly what it is. The PhD is conferred if you are making an original contribution to your field. And this is exactly what the difference is between a master's dissertation and a PhD. A master's dissertation shows you know the field, you're aware of what's happening, but the PhD, as Ernesto has just explained, means you are pushing it a little bit further. And it doesn't have to be huge. It could just be a new theory that you're testing. It could also be a theory that you're disproving, but it has to be original. And this is why the literature review is so very important. Someone else was asking, are you not getting confused by reading all the different literature? But I assume, Ernesto, you would probably agree with me, it helps you to further narrow down what you actually want to do and what your contribution is. Ernesto, I wanted to ask you another question, because you have shown how incredibly dedicated you are, or you were, to your PhD. You did a lot of extra things. You were consulting with the supervisors, you attended workshops, you were already presenting parts of your experiments. Why did you do a PhD? Because I think that's an important question that everybody that sits down to write a proposal needs to be clear about. Now, why did you think a PhD is the right path for you?
I actually understand the purpose why I'm doing my PhD 2 years after 2 years after my PhD. Yeah, I only understand that the reason really I have to do PhD is for me to contribute to my field, because nobody will do that one. And also if nobody will do research which can be seen in codes, in our codes, and also in some of the journals, and then I think if you do that, then my field will be dead, because the problem that we are solving now cannot be solved anymore by the knowledge that we did that one, let's say 5 years ago. So we need to look for another one, and that that requirement can only be used, that can only be addressed if I have to do my PhD. And that's the motivation. I need really, I have to contribute to my field.
Thank you. That is I think that's a wonderful motivation to really have the desire to push knowledge further, and that you play a role there. I think this is really what you need to keep yourself motivated throughout the literature review and beyond.
That's true.
I wanted to ask you something as well, because a lot of people are wondering, and this probably was the same in your situation, how to get a potential supervisor interested in you. What do you think made the supervisor pick you, and what made them respond to your proposal?
The first one is, of course, you really have the connection. I mean to say, you should maintain the connection with your colleague. If you do your master's degree, you should have sustained your connection with your colleague. And also, we also have the same language. I mean to say that my interest is also the interest of the supervisor. So what happened is, because we have the same interest, it also helped me a lot in convincing him to take me as the supervisor. And also I think the best thing to do is that you have to communicate with him, and also you have to be specific on the things that you're going to do in your PhD and the proposal. And also, I know it is very challenging, because sometimes if you send an email to a propository host supervisor, they might ignore your proposal, they might ignore your email, and that is part of searching for host supervisor. But there will be a chance that some of this will be interested, and that's the time that you have to show your interest and your potential of really connecting with him and doing him as yours, as his student, as his PhD student.
Well, thank you so much, Ernesto. That was incredibly helpful. Thank you so much for taking the time to sharing this with all of us today. Now, for all of you, before I hand over to my colleague, I just wanted to just briefly summarize. So what we heard today is, of course, you need to have an idea. It all starts with an idea. As we heard from Ernesto, you need to test it somehow. You need to have an understanding of the field that you're in, that the idea that you're pursuing is a novel one. It doesn't have to be the next Nobel Prize. This is not what a PhD is all about. You have years of academic research to get to that point, but you need to somehow push your field forward in a particular direction. And when reaching out to potential supervisors, do keep in mind that these are busy people, and try to put yourself in their shoes. When they open an email from you, they want to be excited. They want to see that you've done your research, you've read up on who they are, you know which expertise they have, you know the institution that they're at, that this is really a fit between what they can offer and what you are trying to achieve. So this is what this is all about. As Ernesto has said, keep your networks active. Don't just leave after your masters, but really just try and keep engaged with your community at the university. Now, there were a lot of questions in your chats about how to find out about PhD openings in Europe and also funding opportunities in Europe. And this is the opportune moment for me to hand over to my colleague, Dr. Jenny Elmarco, and she will share a little bit with you about the EURAXESS project. So thank you so much, Jenny. The floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Susan, and a good afternoon to everyone. Before we let you go, you had such a really an informative, maybe you have an information overload right now on a lot of things, but we want to assure you that our engagement with you is not over. So if you have any questions on how to move this forward, if you have any other queries on the process that you have to do as you embark on your career, your PhD career, please do contact us. So I just wanted to talk to you a little bit about EURAXESS, where Susan and I are from. So we are the regional hub of ASEAN of EURAXESS, or the European Research Action Service. It is an initiative of the European European Union for researchers in worldwide. Can you go to the next slide, please? Yeah, go back to the first slide, please. Oh, okay, next slide. Sorry. Okay, so if you look at our site, if you Google us, EURAXESS ASEAN, you can see there a lot of resources that can help you in journey, like you were looking for a PhD or you're looking for a hosting institution. All of the information is there. We have a job and funding portal. We have a daily listing of thousands of research jobs, fellowships, and funding offers in Europe. So, you know, at one go, we had like 13,697. It always climbs, especially now that we are just opening up like the new program called Horizon Europe. And also, Ernesto and we are both a part of the Marie Curie Alumni Association. So I think most of you have heard about the Marie Curie Fellowships. And so if you are doing a PhD journey, one of the great things is the Innovative Training Network. It not only gives you guidance, you know, and allows you to have a fully funded PhD, but you are also able to do to strengthen your soft skills, network, you know, find people who can really be with you as you go through your research career. So look at the job and funding portal on the EURAXESS ASEAN site. Next slide, please. The other thing that we have, can you go to the next slide, Ben, please? Is also the partnering tool. So this is for those of you who are with institutions. If you want to search for individuals that are like-minded, if you want to build a research network, you have an idea and you want to gather people together, and somehow maybe in your country or in the region you can't find anyone, you can expand that search through the partnering tool. Also for research organizations and even businesses. Right now, what we are trying to do is also look at bridging science and business, because there's a lot of scientists and there's a lot of great discovery, but the problem sometimes is, you know, how to sustain this discovery. So we want to bridge this and make sure that, you know, that the market is also, and the business also recognizes the importance of research, because we can't just make business, you know, out of the blue. We have to make sustainability strategies. So there's a great partnering tool. You know, it's very rich. You can you know, partner with somebody from Paris or from Milan or from, you know, in many other countries and also associated countries in Europe. So please do look at the partnering tool. It is still in the EURAXESS website. Next slide, please. And of course, there is also a hosting database. So a while ago, Professor Holzhacker was telling us that he is part of the University of Groningen. So that's in the Netherlands. And they've already been a host to a lot of researchers coming from Southeast Asia. And there's a lot more of those, a lot more institutions and research groups that would love to have you, all 272 of you, still in the room. So if you have doubts, you know, I mean, you have a great topic, or if you have an idea of a topic, but you don't know exactly who would welcome you, this is a great place to start. Try to just, you know, put you know, in the search field, just put a word there. For example, political science, or let's say nanotechnology, and then it will come out there who will be available for you. So, you know, be a little bit more proactive when it comes to this, and don't be afraid to ask questions and then to find out who will be a perfect fit, you know, for your research career. This again is available in the website. So it's really a rich website. You can spend hours there and get a wealth of information. Next slide, please. And of course, there's a lot more information for mobile researchers on living and working in Europe. In my case, for example, when I did my Marie Curie, at one point, like in the middle of my research, I got pregnant, and then you know, I had a family. So it's the great thing about the EURAXESS website, it allows you to find information on who to go to when it comes to, you know, support of insurance, you know, transferring the insurance from one country to the other. Also the kind of support that you can get when you have a child, and also the kind that of support that you can get when you bring your partner with you. So, you know, as the great thing about the European research area, as researchers, you know, it's very important to Europe that we have work-life balance, work-life integration. So when you do your excellent research, when you go to the frontiers of science, you also do not forget, as you shouldn't, your family. So your family is with you the whole time, and this information is all there. Also about visa applications, maybe about language programs, if you believe that you need to, you know, learn the language, which of course is not required, but it would be great if you really integrate into the community and also get to know, you know, the wonderful people in the country, in the host country that you will be assigned to. So everything on living and working in Europe, it is in the information. So take a look at that as well. Next slide, please. And of course, the EURAXESS network will give personalized assistance. So we are not the only ones. Susan and I are here in ASEAN. So while you're still here, you can contact us, of course. But there are over 600 EURAXESS service centers in 36 European countries. And we offer personalized, of course, most importantly, free of charge assistance to mobile researchers like you. And there's also a network of national experts to facilitate research collaboration. So really what is just needed here is just your ideas, and we can point you in the right direction to have these collaborations, and let's get this forward for you. Next slide, please. And this is us again. A while ago, you had Dr. Susan Ransovasu. She's in charge of Singapore, Indonesia, and Malaysia. And me, Jenny, I am in charge of Vietnam and Thailand. At the back end, also, we have our new intern, Ben Rashdingo, who is helping us, of course, with the technical stuff and also in answering some of your queries. So we are the team for you in Southeast Asia. So if you have any questions, please do not hesitate to contact us. I'm sure you have your mobile phones with you. So if you can take a picture of the QR code, it will bring you to the site where you can make sure that you can keep in touch with us. So please don't forget that we are always open, right, Susan? We would love it if there are more researchers who will be with us in Europe, and you know, Nestor and I are perfect examples of you know, this kind of journey that is really good for you, and you are really making an impact not only in your research but also in society, as what Professor Holzhacker was saying. So thank you very much, and I'll give it to you, Susan. Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much, Jenny, and thank you to all of you for joining us today. As we said at the beginning, this is a series of career development webinars. We'll have the next one on science communication. Very exciting. Please just check on our website and you'll find all the details on how you can sign up. Do send us an email if you have suggestions, if you have questions. We will post, of course, a recording of today's webinar on our YouTube channel, and everybody who has signed up will also receive an email in the next couple of days where you will find a link to the recording and, of course, a link where you can download the slides. So with this, I think, Jenny, that's it for today. Thank you, everyone, and we'll see you all very soon. Thanks so much.
Yes, and you will get your certificates, of course, after this webinar. So don't worry about that. GoToWebinar has this automatic way of giving you your certificates. But please do keep in touch with us. Also, many of you were actually asking about the recordings. We will put it up on our YouTube channel and also on the website. So watch out for that.
Thank you so much. Good night. Goodbye. Stay safe, everyone.